Ready to go. Welcome to the January 11th, 2022, 6:30 p.m. City Council meeting. We do have a quorum, so I'll call this meeting to order. Would you please join me in a moment of silence? And the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk, would you read the rules to speak?
Yes, sir. Individuals wishing to speak on public and non-public hearing agenda items must complete a sign-up card and present it to the clerk prior to the item being introduced. Those wishing to speak on quasi-judicial public hearings must complete a sign-up card and sign the oath. Sign-up and oath cards are available on the table in the room over here against the wall. Individuals wishing to speak on non-agenda items may do so under petitions from the public present. This opportunity is offered twice in the meeting, and individuals may speak at either the first or second petitions, but not both. No sign-up card is required. Citizens shall not comment on any issue more than once during the meeting. All comments except petitions and requests must address the pending issue, and citizens will be given 3 minutes to speak on all items. Citizens wishing to speak on the consent agenda must submit a comment card identifying the items of interest. Speakers will be given 3 minutes per item. However, citizens wishing to speak on more than 3 items shall be limited to speaking for a total of 10 minutes, regardless of the number of items identified.
Thank you, City Clerk. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of November 23rd, 2021?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second. Let's just do a oral vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes accepted. City Manager.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and just as a quick update, the elevator inspector will be here on Thursday, so we're hopeful that the inspection will go well and that we'll be back in council chambers for the next meeting on
Amen.
Tuesday. With that, council staff requests that we would like to add an agenda item to the special recognitions and presentations. That will be Chief Lau to update council on the status of our ongoing investigation.
Thank you. Need a motion for that?
So moved.
I have a motion from member
Second.
over here, Ms. Nelson, and I have a second, and I'd like a roll call vote.
Member Robinson?
Yes.
Member Nelson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor, or Mayor Diesel?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jordan?
Yes.
Member Stokel?
Yes.
Motion passes. We add that to the agenda, and we go from there. Chief?
Good evening. Raise that.
Is it easier? Would it be easier for you to sit over there and talk, or no?
No, this is fine.
I'm almost getting vertigo. Watch your head almost hit the roof.
Oh my God. Anyway, an update on our investigation, and I have to preface this by saying we really can't get into any particulars. The namely number one is because it's not our investigation. Our protocol is any police-involved shooting, we immediately call Florida Department of Law Enforcement. That is the agency that oversees law enforcement throughout the entire state of Florida. So what I'm really going to try to do is hit on expectations of timeline and how the flow is going to work. So they do have the case. Florida Department of Law Enforcement came out that night. In addition, we called out Brevard County Sheriff's Office to do the crime scene and to take all of the measurements and pictures and all of the evidence that was collected by Sheriff Ivy's folks in their crime scene department. That investigation, Florida Department of Law Enforcement will likely take 2 to 3 months to do their investigation. Part of that investigation are toxicology reports, which just the nature of the business can take upwards of 90 days to get those results back. So then that case, when they're done, they actually will present their findings to the state attorney's office. Okay, and at that time, State Attorney Phil Archer and his folks will review the case, and they will determine if there's any criminal. This is all on the criminal side of things, and they can either go to grand jury, they can indict, they can, you know, exonerate. When they are done with what they're doing, that's when the case comes back to the Titusville Police Department, where our professional standards and more specifically internal affairs section will take over. And their scope is going to be to determine if there was any policy violations, strictly rules, regulations, and any violations as an employee. So that's an administrative investigation, not the criminal side. So all of the criminal investigation will be done by outside agencies. And at that time, when the internal affairs investigation is done, that is when we analyze all the information and we determine what actions, if any, the agency and the city will take. And at that time, when we will be able to be transparent with the who, the what, the where, and have a reveal of all the evidence. And so we're probably looking at mid-April to even beginning of May is when the timeline on that is. And again, at this point, we would rather have it correct, accurate, and done thorough, you know, because that's really what it's all about. But did you have any questions?
I'm just going to ask about the timeline, and that is mid-April. That's the FDLE's possible conclusion.
That's when they will, and they in the state attorney's office will be reviewing that evidence. It'll come to us then. Our internal affairs investigation, we're able to do a lot of the policy work now. So we're kind of double dutying where it doesn't involve any of the details. It's involving our policies and getting training records and getting all the background stuff, information done. So when it comes to us, it's actually going to be much quicker on the admin side.
Okay, very good. I don't see any
Oh,
numbers.
I did.
Are you hitting it?
Yeah.
Okay, we're not
I don't
working
know
up
what
there.
happened.
We may have to raise hands, but go ahead.
John, how backed up is the lab? Are they still backed up like always?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. With technology increasing constantly, there's more and more submissions for evidence, and that creates the backlog. And FDLE themselves, their lab is extremely backloaded. It's not uncommon for us to use an outside DNA lab. It's a little bit more money, but
Yeah.
we've already offered to have that done to improve the timing.
Okay.
So, and it's a lab that FDLE works with.
In Tennessee?
No,
No?
No.
Okay.
down
Okay.
South Florida.
South Florida.
Unless I'm missing it. Has anybody else got a button pushed? Okay. I know you're very, very limited on what you can go into since this is, you know, in process. So with that, I thank you for being here. I thank you for, you know, giving us what you can give us. And we go from there. So I see nothing else. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. City manager, we move to boards and commissions.
No boards and commissions, and off to petitions and requests from the public present.
Petitions and requests. And your time is up.
Stan Johnson. And I want to remind you that I'm a professional engineer, and I'm licensed to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. And let me put it this way, is that a number of people are interfering with my profession and my job. Mr. John. Should I start over? Do I get my time? I'll start all
No,
over
you
again?
just keep going. They just couldn't hear you on TV.
Okay. I'm on TV too? Hello, Mom. Hey, so here's what's going on is that a number of people in the city
and even in the hospital are interfering with my job, because I'm reporting the facts and evidence of cities' dirty deeds. And as you know what they are, and I've got a handout. I don't know if is the handout been sent out? Okay. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Should we get extra time for that?
No, just keep going. Just
Okay.
keep going. We'll get it handed out.
Okay. All right. So it's photographic evidence and so forth of cities' crimes, and these are inconvenient things that I'm reporting to you. And just recently, what I had is that I went to the hospital, and I sent you guys an email about what happened. Is that, by golly, I was kicked out of the hospital, the public hospital, and then I was kicked out of the parking lot, and then that was on December the 6th. On January the 10th, that's yesterday, by golly, they didn't let me in until about the 5th item of the agenda. And as you know, that's in violation of the sunshine laws. And then, of course, Mr. Jordan, who's the chairman, he started the clock long before I came to the podium. Absolutely. I gave him numerous opportunities to go ahead and give me that extra time that he took away from me. He wouldn't do it. Of course, that's in violation of his hospital rules and regulations. What does he care? I get abused and I'm harassed by the hospital. I mean, not just council members who ignore what I say and have a code of silence. For example, Mrs. Stokel, Mr. Jordan, and Miss Nelson. So I'm not sure what's going to happen, but it's not good. And I want you to pay attention, because we still have the situation where the city is guilty of spraying people with sewage, piss and poop, COVID, bloodborne pathogens. I consider that not good. I mean, you may disagree with me, and apparently you do. You think differently than I do. I believe that this is a bad thing to do for 4 months. Spray people with sewage. Sandpoint Park? No, Sandpoint Park? Yes.
Time's up, sir.
I asked
Appreciate
for
it.
2 more minutes.
Yeah, I see none.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else for petitions and requests at this time? I see none. City manager.
On to consent, council, do you have any questions of staff on any of the consent items A through G? Council, do you want to pull any of the items, consent agenda items A through G? Clerk, is there any cards? Okay. And Mayor and Council, with your permission, I'd like to read consent agenda items A through G for the record.
Thank you, sir.
Titles. Consent agenda item 8A, approve the State Housing Initiative Partnership 2022 Housing Incentive Plan and Surplus Property Listing Resolutions. Consent agenda item 8B, authorize staff to apply for the Brevard County Fire and Rescue Trust Grant Fund Grant. Consent agenda item 8C, approve the purchase of trailers for public works. Consent agenda item 8D, approve the final change order number 3 for the annual stormwater and piping installation. Consent agenda item 8E, approve work order number 5 for the annual stormwater and piping installation. Consent agenda item 8F, approve the FY 2022 Brevard County Home Distribution Agreement approval and budget amendment. Consent agenda item 8G, accept and approve the engagement letter for legal services of bond counsel Rhonda Bonds Collins, Esquire, of the Bryant Miller Olive Law Firm.
Okay, council, anything you want to add on that? I see nothing. Call the card, please.
Stan Johnston,
Stan, before you get started, don't start the clock. Before you get started, there's 7 items, 7 cards. That means you have 7 things you want to talk about. And what I really hope you're not going to do is talk about different people in the room and different things and different that. We have 7 things here
Would I do that?
every day. All right, so let's do our best.
Okay.
And I don't really need to know what you agree with and disagree with. I'd really like to hear what you have to say about those. And you might even have extra time before we're done. You might
Oh,
get
that would be nice.
No, you might get done in 7 minutes. All
Okay.
right, start the clock.
Okay, ready?
Yep.
Okay. My name is Stan Johnston. I'm a professional engineer. I'm licensed to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. And I'm speaking on these items for a number of reasons. And of course, one of the reasons is that I'm having trouble with being blacklisted by the city and closed door policy toward me, a number of departments and so forth. And it appears like that, including the fire department. So the water resources and fire department, they don't return my calls. So anyhow, it's hard for me to get my work done. But let's start with 8A. It's the first one. It has to do with two properties. I want to mention about one of these properties. On Kenilworth, that was deeded in on April the 1st, 1994 for $3,000 to Habitat for Humanity. So Habitat for Humanity bought it, and then they gave it to the city, what it looks like for only $10 on March 30th, 1999. ORB 3980, page 1800. What seems unfair is that if the city is going to now give this property away or sell it, and Habitat for Humanity is going to be sacrificed or something for, I'm not sure why Habitat would give it to the city, but maybe I would think that there was some kind of stipulations with that saying, we're giving it to you because. But I would request that the city, when and if they sell this property, that they give at least 80% of what they make back to Habitat. I think that would be a fair thing to do. I really do. Okay, that's 8A. 8B. 8B has to do with Brevard County Fire Rescue, so forth, grant application. Now, this is talking about a bunch of money being expended on the fire department. And I just mentioned to you just a minute ago saying, hey, what the heck is the fire department doing? Blacklisting me? Won't return my calls, my emails? I'm talking about the fire chief. That has to do with that SNJ Oaks townhouses. Now, I think that if we're going to spend money on that, they should be able to respond to a professional engineer trying to do his job in the city. See, my job is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the people. And what you've got on this project is complete nonsense. Doesn't make a bit of sense at all. And that's one of the reasons they don't want to talk to me. Because they're embarrassed. They must be completely embarrassed with what they did. Giving an easement, a 10-foot wide easement for 4 properties and an 8-foot driveway to replace what they have, which is like a 10-foot dirt driveway and at least 25-foot clearance for going both sides. And then, so now it's just absolutely nuts. So let's go to the next one. Let's go to 8C. 8C is Public Works. What do I have to say about Public Works? Mr. Cook is right here. What do I have to say about him and Public Works? Good job. Thank you. That's approval. 8D. Was that a surprise? Poor Mr. Diesel. He has to put up with this.
Go ahead,
I know.
keep going, let's go.
I mean, the problem is, y'all should know, is that Coco should have won that football game. And it was a horrible thing that happened. I'm sorry. Okay, let's go to 8D. Okay, annual stormwater and piping installation. This has to do with Country Club Drive near La Cita Golf Course. I do have a comment about that. My comment is something as this, is that years ago, I learned something. It's a law. There's a law that the city has been violating. I'm not saying Public Works now, but whoever was handling the stormwater, and that law is as follows. It's a serious law the city violates. And so has planning department. They've been violating it. The law is what? I've told you before. 3 words. Water flows downhill. Now, what we're doing on 8D is, by the way, is that we're doing something because water flows downhill. Now, however, in defiance, the city of Titusville, because of what happened years ago and something like that, and like that, has not done what it's supposed to do. They're violating their ordinances to clean canals, maintain canals west of I-95 out of the city limits. It's their responsibility. It's in your code. It's your responsibility to get it done. When you don't do it, you're violating FEMA regulations. You're violating numerous laws, including the law that I just said. What was that law? Water flows downhill. That's something that a number of engineers violate, and they shouldn't do it. Okay, let's go to the next one. 8E, annual stormwater piping installation. San Mateo and so forth like that. And I understand you, we're spending that money on this project. Why are we doing it? I'm not against it, but we're doing it because of the law. The law says water flows downhill, and I'm serious. That's why we're doing it. Okay, number 8F. Yeah, I'm opposed to this because this is and I'm opposed to it because it's not really clarified. And I've talked to some time ago with Attorney Broom about this thing. I mean, if the city has enough money to do what it's doing, why in the world do we need to bond it? Why are a whole bunch of money, a bunch of people profiting in this because we're not managing our money? If we got money, why don't we just go ahead and pay for it? We don't need to bond stuff like this. I don't see it. I just think it's a horrible thing we're doing, and it looks crooked. It looks like somebody's getting money and they shouldn't be getting it. I'm serious. If you read the documents on this, to me, about wet my pants. All right, let's go on to the next one. 8G, legal services. I'll tell you what, I have no idea what we're doing on that, but I put neither on that because I just couldn't understand it. 8G. Oh my golly, we got 2 minutes and 20 seconds to go. So I can say 8G? What's 8G?
Yeah, talk more on G.
Oh yeah, 8G, I do have something. Do not like this. See, it appears that we okay. I don't know why I wrote this, but I said I don't like it. It appears fishy, but that looks like it should be for 8F. Let me see what else I got here. Oh yeah, well, I think I can conclude it there, and we'll have it about a minute left. And just be reminded that the city has violated this thing. For example, water flows down here, and I even have a picture of it. This is what the city has approved, and it's illegal. Look at that. Look at that. That's right there, 995. How's the water going to flow in that place? That's your fault. I'm talking about the council here, right here. Robert Jordan, Sarah Stokel puts her head down, should be paying attention. She'll be on her phone or something like that. But you guys, it's your fault for what's happening here. The city is breaking the law because of you. Water flows downhill. It's a law that you should not violate, but you continue doing it. All right, that's all I have to say right now. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
That was the best you've ever done on consent agenda.
Hey,
I just want to compliment you where I think you compliment.
Thank you. We got.
You went and you talked about items. Remember that. That's how it works.
All right.
Thank you.
I'm learning. Thank you.
Oh, wait. Threw me off. Hold on a second. I got to get back to my other page. I still got 30 seconds. No.
You want,
Here we go.
do you want a motion?
No, not yet. I want to get back to where I'm supposed to be.
Okay.
Okay, any other comment? I always do that too. Any other comment or question on consent agenda? And you might have to raise your hand because I'm not sure whose buttons are working. Okay, with that, take a motion.
Move to approve consent agenda and the resolutions, items 8A through 8G.
Thank you. I have a motion. I need a second.
I'm out.
I still need a second.
Second.
I
You're
have a
slow.
motion and a second. Roll call vote on a consent agenda.
Member Nelson,
Yes.
Mayor Diesel,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jordan,
Yes.
Member Stokel,
Yes.
Member Robinson.
Yeah.
Consent agenda passes. City manager.
On to 9A, which is ordinance number 1-2022 relating to indoor recreation and industrial zones districts. This is your first public hearing and first reading. City attorney will read the ordinance.
Ordinance number 1-2022, an ordinance of the City of Titusville, Florida, amending the land development regulations to include gymnasiums in the definition of recreation and commercial amusement indoor, to correct a scrivener's error, and to allow indoor recreation as a limited use in light industrial services and warehousing, M1 and planned industrial development PID zoning districts by amending sections 28-54 use table and 28-275 recreation and commercial amusement indoor, and amending section 37-1 definitions, providing severability, repeal of conflicting ordinances, effective date, and incorporation into the code.
This is your first reading and your first of two public hearings. The second and final public hearing will be conducted at City Council chambers on January 25th, 2022 at 6:30. The Planning and Zoning Commission considered this ordinance at their January 22 meeting and recommended approval as presented with a vote of 6-0. Ms. Busaka is available to answer any questions that you may have on this ordinance 1-2022.
Ms. Busaka, do you have anything?
Only if you have questions.
And again, you hit your button. If I don't see it, raise your hand, but I don't see any hands or buttons on this. And for those who are watching, we take no action on this reading, so there'll be no vote. This will come up again, as city managers noted, at our next meeting. So with that, Ms. Busaka, I'm fine. City manager, I'm ready to move to the next one. We take no action.
We have one card.
Oh, we do have, I thought he was done.
Stan Johnston.
Mr. Dees, I'll pass on this.
Thank you, sir. Things are going well.
On to item 10A, which is ordinance number 2-2022, correcting errors in the landscaping code, and the city attorney will read the ordinance.
Ordinance number 2-2022, an ordinance of the City of Titusville, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 30, Development Standards, Sections 30-2 Applicability, Subsection 1 Landscaping Requirements, 30-331 Applicability, 30-337 Permitted Uses within a Landscape Buffer Yard, and 30-338 Natural Buffer Yards to correct scrivener's errors and to amend the term Landscape Buffer Yards, amending sections 30-332 Required Landscape Yards and 30-335 Description of Landscape Yards to clarify existing landscape yard standards and to the standards applicable to the downtown mixed-use DMU district in the event of a conflict, providing for severability, repeal of conflicting ordinances for an effective date and incorporation into the code.
This is the first reading. The second reading and public hearing is scheduled to be heard by City Council on January 25th, 2022 at 6:30 in council chambers. Planning and Zoning Commission considered this ordinance on their January 2022 and recommended approval as written. The P&Z wanted to stress and clarify that the intent of Table 30-8 of Section 30-332 is to refer to Exhibit A, buffers maps, and that this map takes precedence. The vote was 6-0. Ms. Busaka is available to answer any questions that you may have on this ordinance number 2-2022.
Ms. Busaka, in a nutshell, I think just for clarification for anybody who's listening, including me, this is just really a cleanup of some wording, or is there anything that changes outside?
Nothing is changing. It's just a cleanup of some references that were not clear or that were incorrect. And there in some, for instance, on section 3332 on page 98, you see that the table says arterial. Well, it's arterial or collector. And what was happening is people were thinking that they had a different buffer than they had to follow because this was not clear. And so we're clarifying the way that it's always been implemented. We're
Okay.
just,
So it's just really clarification. I just, as I read it, wanted to make sure there was, no difference in landscaping, no different requirements in landscaping.
That is correct. There is no
It's
difference.
Just a cleaning up.
That is correct, just to make it easier for people to understand.
Council, somebody's got a button pushed. Okay, I have a 6 and I can't tell who it is now. I know. Thank you.
On page 99, under, identified in B where it says no, to the top of additional standard applicants in downtown mixed use. What does that additional standards mean?
When the downtown mixed-use district was created, they have different landscape requirements. And what happened was the staff put in a sentence that says, where there's a conflict, the more restrictive applies. Well, the intent of the downtown mixed-use district was actually to allow flexibility. So that was never the intent, and it was simply added and that's what we're recommending, is that be removed, so that it would continue to follow the criteria of the less restrictive downtown, which is for more flexible.
Okay, I just needed a little bit clear. I didn't totally understand.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Peggy, P&Z wanted to stress the intent was to refer to Exhibit A. Do we need to do that, or?
When I come back for the next meeting, I didn't have time to create that language. It
Okay.
will be back in your agenda, and I'll highlight it so you can see that we've created additional language to clarify what P&Z asked us to do.
Okay, thank you.
Vice Mayor.
My question. Thank you.
Anybody else? Because these buttons are messing me up. Okay, call the cards, please.
Stan Johnston,
Stan Johnston. And first of all, I got to compliment somebody who's doing a lot of work on this, and who's done a really good job, and that's Ms. Busaka. And the shocking thing is happening, though, and the shocking thing has to do with technology, and that is, I want you to be aware of it because I've lived through it. I'm 75 years old, but there wasn't a computer some time ago, like personal computers. But nowadays, is what we have is, instead of having documents like this, codes and so forth like this, it's volumes and volumes and volumes. And how in the world we can expect planners and so forth to know all what's going on here, even an engineer. It's to the point where when I contract, for example, to do a site plan in another city, I write all kinds of, let's say, disclaimers. For example, his thing is that they may interpret breezeway different than breezeways that interpret that I'm usually, or they may have codes and they violate their codes, and that's what happens, is that cities violate their own codes in their review and so forth like that. It's just really hard. So first of all, I do want to appreciate what Peggy's doing, but I want you to know it's hard. It's really hard, and cities are sometimes making codes that are absolutely impossible to follow, absolutely impossible. And they don't make a bit of sense at all. So thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you. City Manager. Oh, no, we don't vote on that. Yeah, City Manager.
On to item 10B, which is the tree survey ordinance number 3-2022, and the city attorney will read the ordinance.
Ordinance number 3/2022, an ordinance of the City of Titusville, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances to differentiate tree survey requirements for developments meeting minimum tree canopy standards and commercial, industrial, and residential developments not required to meet minimum tree canopy standards by amending Section 30-40 tree survey required before permit, and amending Sections 6.1 master plan submittal requirements, 11.1 sketch plat required submittals, 12.1 preliminary plat required submittals, 14.2 pre-application meeting, and 14.5 site plan required exhibits of the Development Review Procedures Manual, and Sections 2.3 tree protection removal, and amending Section 2.5 tree protection during construction of the Environmental Protection Technical Manual to amend requirements for pavement and grade changes within a critical route zone, providing for severability, repeal of conflicting ordinances, effective date, and incorporation into the code.
This is the first reading. The second reading and public hearing of this ordinance is scheduled to be heard by City Council on January 25th, 2022 at 6:30. The Planning and Zoning Commission considered this ordinance at their January 22 meeting, tabled the item until the Titusville Environmental Commission reviews the item on their January 2022. The vote was 6-0. Ms. Bisaka is available to answer questions that you may have on this ordinance, number 3-2022.
Just to clarify, before we see it again, the P&Z will see it and TEC will see it.
Yes, sir.
And Ms. Busaka, kind of like last time, if you could just give us in a nutshell the Cliff Notes version of what we've
Okay.
got there.
When the city council directed that ordinance 20-2021, which was the tree protection ordinance, that when it was created, the direction that council gave is that there would be two tracks. One would be the track for subdivisions, which would which would require canopy, and which would bring the protected trees down to 14 inches as the minimum protected tree. The other tract was for site plans, which is essentially commercial, industrial, multifamily. The survey, what staff was told to do was to make sure that there were no changes to that development. However, unfortunately, staff did all of it correctly except for the survey requirements. And what the staff did was not differentiate between the old survey requirements that I believe was council's intent when they said no changes for site plans with the new requirements. And the reason that's a difference is because the canopy requirements brought protected trees down to 14 inches. Site plans had protected trees at 20 inches. So what this ordinance does is it puts back the original language in the code for site plans, does not modify any code related to the trees canopy requirements. And in addition to that, in the technical manuals, we had survey requirements which were inconsistent internally with the rest of the code. So we had always intended, once the tree protection ordinance was adopted, that we would go back and modify those technical manuals. I'll give you an example. Under the previous code, if you came in for a pre-application conference, you were not expected to do a tree survey. The new code says, give us your tree survey as early in the process as possible so that we can help you design your project around those really large heritage trees and around the large trees that are on the site. We couldn't do that without getting the tree survey early in the process. So without this ordinance, we will have a conflict internal to the code. And that's part of what we've done here. In addition to that, there was a few changes to critical root zone. We were allowing some impervious surface close into the critical root zone. And that was also internally inconsistent with the tech manual, so that was amended. So this is a lot of words that basically is a cleanup ordinance, and then the one fundamental change is the bringing the survey requirements back to the original survey for site plans.
Council? Before we go further, I think I said this every time we talk about trees, what you've done with this, well, the number of sides there are to this, and you have talked to every side that you can talk to and more, and I'm just very impressed and very pleased and very thankful that you are there to do that.
Thank you, but they helped me.
No doubt, no doubt, and I appreciate all those, the different groups, the tree team and the developers and all the people you've talked to, staff. So thank you very much. I see nothing from council on this. Cards, please.
Stan Johnston,
Stan Johnson, professional engineer, and I've done a number of site plans. Been registered now for about 45 years, I think, something like that, and registered land surveyor also. This says tree survey. I'm looking at a site plan right now that does not meet tree survey requirements that was approved by the city. And that is the survey for this SNJ Oaks, which is also called Elizabeth Oaks Townhomes. What they propose is, for example, is about a foot off the property line, is to relocate a dirt road. Well, survey requirements for the city of Titusville requires topo, and I'm not sure whether it's 25 feet or something like that, or 50 feet or whatever. There's topo lines and so forth, and topo information outside of the property line. So we got a bunch of beautiful oaks along the property line that's going to be destroyed because they didn't follow regulations as far as what I see them. In other words, they're near the property line, they will be destroyed. So I'm just letting Peggy know and so forth like that is that topographical information, the way I interpret it, is to be beyond the property line. And in this case, when you're destroying trees on the adjacent property, you should be considering those trees. I'm not sure what the best thing to do is, but when you're developing near the property line, by golly, you need to consider that, and that's what they're doing in this particular project. So as far as I'm concerned, that's a violation. Although I consider myself a tree hugger, there's some trees that I do not am impressed with, like, for example, the ear tree. I don't really care for that. I don't think you should either. And the Melaleuca, my golly, I can't believe we got a Melaleuca tree right in the middle of US 1. I can't believe we do that, but that's the way it goes. So when we're doing this tree survey thing, is that please have the staff to review these surveys, and the survey that I'm looking at has numerous deficiencies for this that I'm looking for that particular site plan that I would have never allowed to happen if I were reviewing it, and that's what I used to do. Paid for by the county, paid for by the city. Thank you.
Thank you. City manager.
We have no old business, no new business. You're on item 13, which is petitions and requests of the public present.
Petitions and requests, second time around. If anybody has anything they want to say, you guys got anything? No? No? Oh, wow. Okay, that takes us, no petitions and requests. That takes us to the council and mayor's reports. City manager, check me on that so I don't skip anything. Okay. Well, we're doing so well, I don't want to mess it up. Let's do this, and I thought this might be a good way to do it. Let's go down from left to right, and if you have something, say. If not, kind of like around the table at the end of a meeting. So let's start with Member Stokel.
I don't really have anything. I was going to let you guys know the legislative conference that you guys approved me to go on. I decided not to go to it. It is in early February, and it starts on the Tuesday that we have a council meeting. So I just don't think it would be effective for me to go. And then with the COVID rising numbers, I'm not sure how effective I'll be there with the group anyway. So just wanted to say thank you for approving me to go, but I decided not to, and we didn't pay for anything. So Happy New Year.
Thank you. Thank you, Member Stokel. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I actually would like for.
Button, yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right. I would like for council to consider asking staff for advisability on the consent agenda. There are areas or different governmental agencies that actually say the consent agenda is one item. And the consent agenda is one item. It's just like any of the other items that you have on there. And I would suggest that we look at making it a maximum of 5 minutes for the consent agenda, if it's required. If a member of the public has one item, it's 3 minutes, but a maximum of 5 minutes for the consent agenda, but have a discretion by the mayor if he thinks that the petitioner needs to have more time. I think that would help with us getting through the agenda, and also make it fair, because in my opinion, consent agenda is actually one item. It just happened to have multiple parts. And the reason for consent agenda is it's supposed to be something that is not controversial, if you will. So that's my suggestion.
Before we go there, I would say that, gosh, a couple months ago at the end of our meeting, I spoke to that. And I didn't really feel like there was any support out there at that time. I just think what we have is a little awkward. I'll just leave it at that. I will say, and you having come at one point from the school board, they do it very, very different. And if they didn't, there'd be a lot of troubles, because sometimes their consent agenda is 97 items. So I definitely have no problem with an advisement. I don't know that we need a vote on that, do we? If we can just take a look and bring us back some advisement on that, and maybe look at how some other people do it, like the school board. Well, like this, she's not there, like the school board, for example. So I'm all for looking into it. It just seems a little bit discombobulated sometimes.
Okay.
So you good?
I'm good.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Member Nelson.
Absolutely nothing.
We're looking at a record here. We're looking at a record. Member Robinson.
Yes. I apologize to all. I received a phone call, I think 21st December, asking was I going to be at the memorial ceremony. I just happened to be out in San Diego, California at the time. I wanted to be there, and I know that it's a good thing that we do to recognize the homeless that has been lost over the year. And additionally, this past Sunday, my dear friend and mayor asked me was I going to be and represent the city at the ribbon cutting of St. Stephen's. And I was there. The meal was great, and the ceremony was very good. Very, they had 2 languages on them. Glad they had the English version of it, but it's Arab or whatever it was at that time. But it was a good ceremony. But I stood in one spot for 2 hours.
Ooh.
And they kept on asking me, is the mayor going to be here? And I kept on saying, I think that he has a representative here this time.
I appreciate that. More ways than one. You absolutely nothing to push your button.
No, actually, I was like, thought about this, and we went to the service for the homeless, and this was to honor the people who had died over the last year. The list went on and on
Seemed like
and
about
on.
60. I was telling city manager that. I was really surprised.
60, 70 homeless
was a
people
lot.
who died over the last year. And so it really got me thinking that we really need to increase our low-income housing somehow, some way. And, like as you said, the teachers, some of the police officers, they need low-income housing, and we don't have it. And I'm not sure how we can get there, but I think it's something that's important in our community. So
Very good.
that's my 2 cents.
Go ahead, sir.
Yes, on that, I have been.
Is your button pushed? I know.
Yes, I've been part of that deceased homeless recognition. I brought it to Norfolk Board probably 24, 25 years ago. And I've seen it as high as 90.
Really?
I've seen it as high as 90. And that housing issue, yes, and I've been talking with some people. Housing is going to be a problem everywhere as we go along. And low income housing is probably not the correct term. Probably affordable housing is probably the best way to address it.
Yeah, probably.
Other than-
Probably. And I was saying to some people recently, even take homeless out of this particular equation. It is a national issue. The housing prices in our area are really, really high. I don't want to say I've never seen them this high. We did have the issue once before, but, and then if you can't afford that, you really can't afford to rent because you got to come up with the first, last, and deposit. It's really getting difficult. It's really getting difficult for people in our country, our state, our county. But what most concerns me is our city. I don't have an answer, and I'm not looking at you guys to say, give me an answer and let's fix this. But I think at least an awareness, and as we have an opportunity to maybe make a move in some direction, we aren't going to bring housing costs down. And I'm not saying that's the thing we want to do. But I am saying that it concerns me that I'm not even talking necessarily about people who are really low income. I'm talking about, regular educators, having come from education for, my entire career. And I'll go ahead and say, I'll just say it. She doesn't watch this. But my sister's in that situation. She's like a 25-year teacher. And the salary she makes is not very conducive with the housing prices we have now. So I just thought I'd kind of throw that out there, and that was one of the things I was going to talk about. But I've said that once before, actually, when I sat way over there back in one of my first or second years. When a house that, like I live in Imperial Estates, which is a 1965 house, nothing fancy. I love it to death, but nothing fancy. I saw one 3 blocks away that was renting for $2,500 a month. It should be like $800. I mean, it's like, wow. So just thought I'd throw that out there. I'm not looking for any solutions. I'd love to have one, but it's kind of silly. It's a national problem. And for some people who are selling houses, it's a national, excitement. A couple things I want to say. One, the last meeting we had, and Laura Lee and I had an exchange about the Manatees. And with the follow through, I will say, first of all, I want it on for people to hear if they're watching and concerned about that issue. I did sign a letter to the governor concerning the starving manatees. It's definitely one that hits my heart near and dear. I love animals. I love dogs, and I love manatees. I don't like seeing any of them starve. Then we took it a step further, and I contacted State Representative Placentia, Coach P, and my hat's off to him, and I thank him for setting up a Zoom meeting between he and I and 4 FWC representatives. And I felt like, if nothing else, we were heard. I was heard. Like I tend to do sometimes. I'm not real patient. And my hat's off to FWC. Thank you. But when I felt like I was hearing more concerns about human contact with manatees, and that was a real concern. I get that. But as I said to them, fed's better than dead. And we're in that emergency mode, and apparently they have moved forward, and we're doing something down here at the power plant. I don't know if they pulled that off yet, but they were working to do that. And then I said, what about over here at Hollover? And they were looking at that. So they were very attentive. They listened. I appreciate them. I appreciate Coach P for setting that up, and he certainly added his concerns. But I want that to be known that we got a letter off to the governor, and I had a meeting with our state representative in FWC. I can't tell you that, they jumped up and down and said, oh, well, the mayor says that, we got to go do it. So I don't think that's going to be the case, but it's a concern. I also had the opportunity to go to Thursday night homeless showering over at the community center. Scooter Morrison is one of my former students as well. Y'all may know Scooter, depends how old you are. But that being said, they have a tremendous outreach over there, and it's more than I knew, and that's why I want to kind of say this. I went in and I talked to a lot of the homeless, and I'm looking at some former students there, and it's sad that some of them are former students, and it affects all of us. But they had food. They had clothing, they got a place, and I'm sure you're very familiar with this. They have a place where they can pick up clothes. They have a kind of a mascot dog that, really got my heart there. And they even were doing haircuts in the back. and I'm planning on trying to be kind of a regular by there on Thursday. It gets you a chance to know kind of who they are and what's going on. And again, that's another thing. When you come out, you're glad you were there, but I have no answers. But I will also say that they're appreciative. They all express the appreciation because this city of ours, this community, our people do a great job. And I mean, our citizens do a great job. Every Saturday morning, First Methodist sponsors and some other group comes in there. I know we go with Rotary almost every month. And we serve breakfast to them on Saturday mornings. We have this Thursday shower and all the other things I mentioned. They have Under the Bridge ministry on Mondays. I'm not saying, that they can be taken care of every day of the week, but I think Titusville does a pretty darn good job. And to be honest with you, I think some of the homeless come here because of that, because other cities don't do everything that we do. So I love the heart of this city, and I appreciate that very much. With that, Member Robinson, thank you for going to that event. I saw on the thing that you were going to it anyway, and I thought, well, I appreciate it. Couldn't make that. City Manager.
Yes, sir. No action items. I have just a reminder. Next Tuesday, we'll have the CBDG special meeting. That'll be at 5 o'clock in the council chambers. And then we go into the budget cycle on 19 February. We'll begin our strategic planning community conversation. And that's all I have.
Very good. Thank you. City Attorney. Well, that's wonderful. Council, one last thing. If you had any last thought? If I wait 3 minutes, it'll be 7:30. You want me to wait? With that, dismissed.